Hey, this is Dave Fryer. Welcome to the Reluctant Agilist. Jim Benson's back. It's been a really long time since we've done an interview, but he's got a new book out. And Jim, thank you for making time for this.
A new book coming out.
Coming out, yes.
It's good to be here.
We're being ambitious with it. So before we talk about the book, just in case there's anybody here who's not familiar with you and with your work, how do you explain that to people now? Because you've got a wider range of stuff out there now.
So my work has always been about collaboration. When I was a transportation engineer and building subways, or when I was working on the AIDS quilt, or when we started Personal Kanban or all those things, the key thing that I do is getting groups of people together and then making sure that they work as a cohesive group.
Okay.
And that the individuals in those teams not just feel, but they are given the ability to be the best professionals that they can be. So my thing about is that we say individuals work in teams to create value. And in Agile, we talk a lot about teams. In Lean, we talk a lot about value, and the individual professionals tend to get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
And so to have a healthy system, you need to be paying attention to all three.
Okay. So I want to ask you one sort of leading question before we go into this. I get asked a lot of questions about collaboration. How do I make them do this? How do I make them do that? You just said you get people together and they get them to collaborate. I think I know the answer, but I want to check. Is this something where you can say, like, this is how you do this? Or is this more like, let the system teach you what it needs you to do for it to make it work?
No, it's coercion and threats.
The yardstick.
So what I found is that, or actually what I know is that collaboration is kind of like change.
Okay.
We don't want things to continue to suck, yet we tend to resist change. Everybody does, just naturally. And collaboration is the same way.
Okay.
And so we feel like in our heads, when we're just working alone in our heads and at our desks, that we have control
and safety. Yeah.
And safety, but it's all an illusion of control, because none of our work is actually ever done alone. We always have a customer. We always have a team. We always have a reason that we're doing the work. And those relationships are there, whether we've isolated ourselves or not. And if we're not working closely with those people, then we will have rework. We will have misunderstandings. We will have frustrations, and people don't want that. So what we tend to do when faced with any situation is we look for where people are frustrated.
Okay.
And then look at the impediments to the flow of information, the flow of work, the flow of responsibility, the flow of respect. And those are all collaborations.
Okay.
Strangely enough. So collaboration doesn't mean like that we're pairing all the time and getting together and working on the same thing. It means that even when I'm working alone, I have faith that Dave Pryor is doing the thing that he's supposed to do. And then when we're done, they're going to come together and mesh nicely.
Okay, so that's a really interesting thing. So the interaction extends beyond just we're in a room together or we're on Zoom together or whatever.
Yep.
Okay, so we should give the title of the book, The Collaboration Equation.
Mm-hmm.
And what led you to write this?
Well, so like I said, everything that I've done, so when I was 14 or 15 years old and an angry punk rocker in the middle of Grand Island, Nebraska. And if you want like a situation where you're going to start as an angry punk rocker and then really
just gonna say,
continuously improve,
totally.
improve your anger, try it in Grand Island, Nebraska. So I had a band, and that band had to play in front of other people. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of people screwing around in a basement. So we not only had to learn to play our instruments and how to make records and how to, mix and do all those things, but we also had to learn how do we build a market in a place that's fundamentally hostile to us.
Right.
And we did that. So that taught me, like, from a very early age, that if you work with other people, You
Right.
will achieve things that you could never achieve on your own. And work is generally done faster. It's generally done better. It feels slower because we have to stop our typing and talk
Yeah.
to other people. It feels slower. But if you've ever managed a project where the team is all informed and they're all working together and they talk a lot,
Right.
the work gets done a lot faster. And I have, you know, unfortunately for me now, 35 years worth of experience that I've been able to dump into this book about working like with teams all around the world
Okay.
in Vietnam and South Africa and Nebraska and wherever else, where human beings really like to work with other human beings as long as the game is understandable.
Okay.
So politics is what we hate, and politics happens because people aren't clear about what to do next or how they can help.
Okay.
Sorry, that was
So
a long answer.
that's okay. Can I stick with the band thing for a second? Because I want to ask
You
about
bet.
this. So it sounds like in your band that everybody was engaged in creating the stuff, but also marketing, finding places to play, promoting the band. A lot of the bands that I was in, it was like there'd be one person that would do that.
Mhm.
And when you talk about the collaboration, I would say that like most of us collaborated, but then there was the drummer. We were just trying to get the drummer to show up. Like if that happened, that was cool. And
I
that
believe
actually
that's a
sounds a
universal
lot like,
drummer constant.
yeah, but that sounds like a lot of the teams that I've been on too in my professional life. Like you were, is that the case that you're in your band, everybody was sort of all throwing in together on this?
So here is the beauty of my peer group and my bands. And that was that my peer group went up like 4 years and down 4 years because we were punk geeks or just geeks in the middle of a geek hostile place.
Okay.
So in our class, we couldn't possibly, I don't know, fill a cohort
Right.
of friends. So what happened was you always had like people who had been around for a while and people who were noobs. So just like a team, right?
Yeah.
And so what we had was a fairly coherent culture
Okay.
that they were able to come in and work on. Like on these nights we play Dungeons and Dragons, on these nights we get together and make really loud noises, and on these nights we drive around aimlessly between Grand Island, Hastings, and Kearney and look for something to do, or hopefully our parents would hope something not to do.
Right.
But in the office we have an added issue, which is that people are already uncertain as to their status
Okay.
at work. They don't know what they're going to get judged on. They don't know what's going to happen to them if they drop the ball on this, that, or the other thing. And they're given more work than they can handle.
Mm-hmm.
So when we start going into things like, you know, can we talk about our culture or can we do this or can we do that? People are
Yeah.
like, isn't that the product owner's job? You know, is
Right.
the product owner supposed to tell us what our culture is? So our challenge is, in the end, and the reason for the book is, can we build a culture that we can maintain, and that culture provide enough cues for where we can help, how we
Okay.
can become better professionals, what the work is that we need to get done, remove any obstacles for psychological safety, and remove any obstacles or any fear of doing the right thing.
Okay. So I have a bunch of questions off of that. But for the first one is, how do you define culture?
Okay, so for me, culture is the social system our team is based on that allows us to get work done at all.
Okay. So that may negate my second question, which was, you said you want everyone to feel safe and no one to have fear. I was just in a conversation with somebody last week where in a work situation, they brought up a topic and they were kind of, it was like head cutting. I mean, they were just taken down. And when I witnessed it, and what I saw was the person that was, aggressor's not the right word, but the person that was having at them
Mhm.
was doing it with intent and consciousness and trying to create a safe space. And I think if I'd been on the receiving end of it, I would have taken it as guidance and instruction. But the person who was the recipient took it as a personal attack. And so I'm
Mm.
assuming that, like, for me, if I'm on a team, if I do something that sucks, I don't want somebody to be nice to me. I want them to say, like, dude, that sucks.
Right.
Tell me why, but don't waste my time by making me figure it out.
Right.
But that safety is going to be a moving thing. It's not a constant. It would be different in different cultures, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so that's a huge thing. So if you're in Oslo, or is somewhere in Scandinavia, your instantiation of your culture is going to be different, and the nature of the psychological safety presents itself is going to be different. If you are in New York where you are, it's going to be very different. We just worked last week with a team in Milwaukee, which has they have Wisconsin Nice,
Yeah.
which is they're the Jets, and Minnesota Nice are the Sharks,
Right.
and they get together and passive aggressive each other to death. So when you go into different locations, the nature of the social norms change, which is a big issue now, because like my German clients aren't my German clients anymore. They're now my global team clients.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All of their teams are now global. So they've got people in India and people in South America and people in Australia and people in Russia and so forth, and in the Middle East.
Okay.
And so, you get two Scandinavians and two Israelis together, and then you're just like, well,
That's going to add layers of complexity onto the cultural thing, because you're going to have to understand every country's culture and then build your own on top of it, right?
Yeah, or you can circumvent all of that
Okay.
and have the team get together and do what we call a right environment exercise.
Okay.
And this is a big part of the book, is that individuals and teams create value. When I was in the middle of my career, so just becoming a senior urban planner and a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, when I was kind of in that initial management role, I was at a company called David Evans and Associates.
Okay.
And their tagline was, we find outstanding professionals and give them the tools they need to do an outstanding job. And they meant it.
Okay.
And it was awesome. And it was such a wonderful culture. And no one left there angry.
Okay.
They if we left, it was because you had a better offer or you wanted to move on in your career in some way. But it was always like, oh man, I got to leave DEA.
Yeah.
And that was my first taste at something called the right environment, which is, have we intentionally built a culture that allows the professionals on this team to be the best professionals that they can be? And if you start from that, then you just get everybody together and you figure out, okay, what do we need as individuals and as a group? And then how do we make sure that we've made a culture that a maintainable culture, an intentional culture that can actually allow those things to happen.
Okay.
And psychological safety will always come from that, even if you have introverts and extroverts, or, loud and quiet, or you've done a color wheel thing and you've got greens and purples and reds and fuchsias are floating around, or, whatever.
So this sounds like it's more intentional than just like you people go collaborate on this thing now. Or the assumption that, that sort of hand wavy agile thing where if we put people together, they'll just self-organize and magical, wondrous things will happen, which to me just sounds insane. But I know there's a lot of people who believe that humans do that. I just haven't met a lot of them.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who make money claiming that happens.
But you have to be more explicit and intentional about it, right? That's part of what you're.
Yeah. And not only that, but you have to be very clear with people who don't want to be managers. That so this is like, in software, we talk about software craftspeople.
Yeah.
Like we're all like working with like wooden mallets in the basement, we put some code in the vise and we're dun, dun, dun. It's like, no, our code flies airplanes and restarts people's hearts.
Hopefully it does those things.
Hopefully. So the more we're craftspeople, the more it won't.
Okay.
Because craftspeople are like, hey, you need a little more flourish here, or
more bedazzle.
That's right. We don't want that. We want crap that works and doesn't kill people in the process. So we want professionalism.
Okay.
And even and we've talked about this before, but even if I'm Herbie Hancock and I'm in my 80s, I still practice every day.
Yeah.
Because I'm a professional. Okay. Not because I'm a craftsperson, but because continuous improvement is the hallmark of professionality. And if you don't have it, you're not professional. You're just screwing around. And that includes the understanding the environment in which you create your stuff.
Okay.
So you don't get a hall pass from that.
So you
obviously I'm a little bit passionate about this.
Well, yeah, but it's good. So you have to become, I guess, a student of collaboration then. Right. So then to just follow that through, it would be my responsibility to not just learn how to unlock whatever is in myself, but learn how to deepen my ability to engage with others and meet them where they are, and across generations or other kinds of boundaries, learn how to meet people and work with them.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen really quickly,
okay.
And I'm going to let the world see some sausage being made. All right, so I'm just going to share this screen here really quickly, and this is literally part of the book being written that you will never see in the book, and you'll know that because of the comment on the right. So, but I just want to point out two things. So my editor told me that I needed to write some principles for the book. So I've been working on them, and here are the first two. There's a bunch of other. There's like 5 of them. But the first two are that everyone that is a professional needs to pay attention to what's going on. You can't just do your work. That's not a professional.
Okay.
If you work for me and you wait for me to tell you what to do, number one, you're a 1099.
Okay.
You're not actually part of the team.
Right.
You are a contractor. Contractors are told what to do. Team members figure out the right thing to do. All right. And you can only figure out the right thing to do if you're paying attention. So you pay attention. And then the second thing is you give a damn. And when I was working in construction in New York, this was literally give a shit. And so whenever, what do you call them? Leaders, yes, those things, they would say, what do I need to do better? I would say, you need to give a shit.
Yeah.
You need to care. And so at Turner Construction, they actually call this active caring. If you can believe that.
Like active listening. Okay.
Yeah, like, yes. But if you can imagine a 100 and pretty close to 20-year-old now construction company in New York using the words active caring. I didn't give them those words. They came up with those words. Freaks me right out. I would think that they lean more for the scatological reference, but they understood, and they do understand innately, that if the leaders and all of the people at Turner don't care,
right,
then construction workers die, and the world becomes nothing but punch lists. So we need, as professionals, to all give a damn. Period. And if we don't, then we're always going to be
suffering.
Then we're always going to be just lackeys.
Okay, so that's I understand what you're saying, but I think it's a tall order for a lot of people that they're going to show up and actually care about what they're doing. I mean, let me say this. I want to say this a different way. So I agree with everything that you just said, and I feel like I try really hard to surround myself with people who show up that way. But I get so many people that I talk to in classes that are surrounded by the opposite of that. And maybe they all need to be 1099s, but there's so many people out there who are used to just coasting and not having to do anything but like physically be present.
Yep.
And getting basic competence out of them is often enough of the struggle. Getting them to care is like growing wings and a unicorn horn. So how do you do that? How do you entice somebody into giving a shit when they show up?
Yeah, again, it's all bribery and coercion.
Well, is it that you just have to find the right people so that, like, in your realm, that's what you're surrounded with? Or are there ways to get people to actually change and care?
Right. So in the Personal Kanban book, we talked about this. So there's a myth in software development that still persists. Damn, book's 12 years old now, and this myth is still out there that you hire A-list coders.
Yeah.
Everyone go buy my book, read just that sentence, and then stop doing that. So you hire people who are good at coding,
Okay.
who have terrible collaboration skills, and then you wonder why you have problems when you go to integrate your code.
Oh, okay.
You wonder why you have problems at that point when you when the customer shows up and they want something and that person sits there and is entirely silent through the whole meeting, and then as soon as the customer leaves, they complain about what the customer just asked them to do.
Okay.
So we don't want to hire people who have proven themselves to be awesome typists.
Or awesome working alone all night by themselves, fixing a problem that they probably created in the first place.
Because then what they do is they write code that only they can read.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been down that path. We had a client once that had written an entire huge SaaS product, and it was all written in just nasty scripting language, X. I won't talk about it so that we don't offend the people who are religiously attached to nasty scripting language X. But let's just say that the whole system started to break down because of the incredible, of an Italy's worth of spaghetti code.
Okay.
And they had heroes. And the heroes kept fixing the code, and the heroes would be like up all night fixing the code, and they'd sleep it off, and then they come in and, repeat and repeat. And I was like, when are you going to build 2.0? And they're like, oh, there's no way we could, because our subject matter experts are these heroes. And so what we did
was too busy smoking to quit smoking.
That's exactly right. That's right. I do coke so that I can work harder, so that I can afford more coke. So what we did is we built a Kanban for them that literally had a picture of it said in the thing, it literally said shit happens, and then it had a picture of a little Superman, and then it had a picture of a bed, and then it had a picture of a geek.
Okay.
And then it had a picture of a happy face. And so what we just added one step to their workflow, which is dude would come in, work all night, fix whatever thing had blown up. Right. Then immediately after sleeping it off, would come back and work with a normal person.
Okay.
And they would refactor the code into something that was readable and well written. And did that cause some problems up front because the crap density was so high? Yes, but that didn't last for very long because the rework started to go away.
Okay.
And so that's a weird way of saying, look, you can leverage your existing toxic culture,
right,
by trying to see where the exit point from that toxic culture is. Mm-hmm. And then just instantiate that and start working the work towards that. So those people who never wanted to work with people before ended up liking the refactoring because they knew they were being better professionals, and they could see an end to their endless hell. Okay. They're like, oh my God, I can't quit. Otherwise this whole company will die. And so when the work started to calm down, they switched over to R&D and started to build 2.0.
Okay. So the joy of being somebody who works solo and has that like complete sense of purpose and focus is replaced by the joy of being somebody who builds stuff with someone else that actually works, that can outlast you.
Professional satisfaction is a wonderful thing.
Well, it is, but it doesn't necessarily have the adrenaline punch of I'm Superman.
No, but then those guys got to go be Superman in a different way.
Yeah.
So you can either be toxic Superman, the angry Superman who, like, I can't remember the whole movie.
Red Kryptonite Superman.
Yes, it's but this is the thing, is that when you go in, you have to work with reality.
Mhm.
So you have people who are scared of a million different things.
Right.
You have a system that has built that fear. You have people who have built coping mechanisms to deal with that fear, who are very reluctant to give them up. And most of those coping mechanisms are shut up and leave me alone.
Yeah.
So, it's that when we start off with a value stream mapping exercise, one of the reasons why that is powerful for people is because they start to see that the things that have really been upsetting them are upsetting the rest of the team as well.
Okay.
And the fixes for them are almost always either automation or collaboration.
Okay.
They're very rarely, beat the crap out of Greg.
Yeah.
And
Been watching a lot of Succession, have we?
so our role in that is to make sure that they stay focused on that path, not how are you going, because where everybody always goes is they say, here's a problem in our workflow, let's get a champion for that. And then they always want to put champions on that. And so we're always like, all right, you put a champion on that. Who's the champion going to work with? Well, who's ever available? No.
Well, they want somebody to be accountable for it, and that champion is the accountable person. Like that's a pretty big mindset shift, right? Where you're going to say that the whole group is going to be accountable.
Yeah, it's a painful mindset shift. And it's how we get into every political problem that the world has right now.
Yeah.
Is that we put too much faith in single individuals to solve things that they cannot solve on their own.
Okay. I want to go back to the culture thing for a second, if that's okay. So I know that that's a big deal. And I know that there's a lot of people who really love that, culture eats everything in the universe for breakfast approach to everything. Like without culture, nothing exists. But culture by itself isn't enough to do anything. There has to be other things in place. So what, beyond just the basic culture stuff, what else do you have to have?
Yeah. Well, so the thing about culture eats everything for breakfast or what have you is that culture is always an assumption. I see very few teams set out and say, this is the culture we want, and these are the actions that we're going to take to get it.
Right.
And the moment that you say that, you have now operationalized your culture.
Okay.
We want a right environment in which we can be the best professionals possible. So we want to make sure that we have these documentation rules and that we talk to each other on a regular basis and that we respect the client and that we're all involved in planning or whatever they might be. Okay. You figure those things out and then you make sure that the work that you do every day doesn't screw that up.
Okay.
So we're really great at having retrospectives or offsites and figuring out all the things that we want. And then we go the next day to work and everybody's overloaded with work and they all ignore each other again.
Well, that's what, because it sounds to me like when I hear people talk about culture, it's like it's the excuse that they have for not being awesome at what they're doing. Like, well, if we had culture.
That's right. Yes. The team ain't got no culture.
Yeah. But that you have a culture anyway. It's just you have an intentional culture that's designed to help you thrive, right?
I think that Simon and Garfunkel or the Paul Simon line works fine. The team ain't got no culture. Everybody must get stoned. So at Turner, you start off with a right environment exercise before you ever go into a trailer. Okay. And the elements of that are in their Obeya. So you have visualizations that say, safety is important. So we're going to track safety. We're going to watch safety. We're going to talk about safety. We're going to be safe. We're going to make it an expectation that if someone sees something, anything at all that is unsafe, they should do something about it.
Okay.
And before, that was something that people were just told at Turner.
Right.
You know, if you see something, go do something about it. But people also know at Turner they have like really huge deadlines that are super stressful, and they're rushing from place to place. They can't stop to move a bucket or put something in front of a hole or whatever might be happening on the job site.
Okay.
Now on those sites they do. So there is the culture side, which is just like the culture isn't just like I like you and you like me and so we work together gleefully, but it's that we as professionals understand that if we don't work together in a good way, we're going to do crap work.
If we don't move the bucket or cover the hole, bad things are going to happen.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so now it becomes a responsibility, not accountability, but a responsibility to act.
Okay.
So now psychological safety becomes an expectation. And so then when we're doing things like building our Kanban boards or having our retrospectives or having our stand-up meetings or our huddles or whatever we're doing, those decisions are now part of what we check up on.
Okay.
When we onboard, are people being onboarded in a way that makes them feel like, that makes them part of the team, that gets them active as quickly as possible?
Okay.
How much confusion? Hey, person who just started, there seemed like there was less confusion, and then person who started 2 months before was like, we totally improved the things that really upset me when we improved this new person or onboarded this new person.
Okay.
So we have our operational elements that now need to be underwritten by and promote our cultural elements.
So this is like inspecting what you would do in a retrospective, inspecting and adapting the team, the way they're engaging. This amped up to a much more intentional and conscious level.
Yeah, this is more on the lean scale of plan, do, study, and adjust.
Okay.
And to be clear, that culture is something that we're also running those PDSA cycles on.
Okay.
And that if we don't maintain our culture, then our culture will fail. And if our culture fails, then it doesn't matter what we tell people to do. They're not going to be able to do it because they won't have the agency to get the work done.
Okay.
You have to have a healthy culture in order to have agency and psychological safety.
Okay.
You can't, yeah, that's why it drives me crazy when people are like, we have this really crappy culture, but we're going to send everybody out to sensitivity training. And you're like,
damn it.
Yeah, that's right. And everybody's like, oh, I gotta
send these idiots now out to sensitivity training. You mentioned Obeya. Could you explain what that is for people that aren't familiar with the term?
Sure. So an Obeya is a single room where all of the information that a team needs to work lives.
Okay.
And so we have those in almost all of the trailers in New York, or offices in New York for Turner. And I have used them on every project since the 80s.
Okay.
And if you just have a Scrum board, or you're just using, Jira or a Kanban or something, you don't fully understand your work.
Okay.
You have an okay window into your work. It's better than not knowing those things, but it's it's like one data source in a complex environment.
So in a virtual environment like we've been in for the past couple of years, how would that work? Is it like my Obeya is Jira and Slack and email and whatever, and I'm going to fit all those windows onto my screen at one time?
Yeah. So that's definitely the group marriage approach. And it's like, did I put this in Slack or did I put it in email?
Yeah, you can never remember where the thing is. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where almost everybody lives, right?
Okay.
So I'll show you what we're doing now.
We'd like to have one. Like I've seen the pictures you have of Turner. Like there's one big wall.
Right. Exactly. So at Turner, this does look like this. So this is the Coney Island Hospital project. This is their Obeya room and their main conference room. Up here at the top, they have their milestone map for the whole time.
Okay.
Here on this particular day, these were pictures of pilings that had just gone in for the hospital.
Okay.
This is their safety record and goals and things that they're doing for safety. This is their procurement schedule over here on the wall, incredibly complex. You know, it goes way beyond this guy's back. And here, this is like the schedule of like what tradespeople are going to be on what floors at what time. And it goes all the way around the room. And this obey even includes things like the plans for the building and a three-dimensional, you know, kind of model for it. You can see over here that they took part of it out and they were talking about it, you know, earlier in the meeting. And the upshot is that anybody, whether it's the project team or whether it's the clients or whether it's the designers or whoever, anyone can enter this room and get an idea of something that's going on that's of interest to them. They don't have to go ask other people. They don't have to go find it. It's all in one place. And the really cool thing about this particular room is, well, two cool things. Cool thing A is that there's always been a division between the tradespeople and the general contractor. You know, so it's kind of like, you know, a classic management labor divide. And so tradespeople would do anything they could to never go into the trailer. Right. Because that's where, you know, the narcs lived. And so once this went up, all of a sudden, just
everybody's random
tradespeople would come in and start looking at stuff all the time. And they're like, Turner's like, oh my God. And so this was part of their right environment. We need this information in order to get our work done. And they realized that part of their right environment was also helping make sure that the tradespeople had the information that they needed. So when the ground floor of the parking garage was done for the hospital, they built out a giant Obeya room for the tradespeople.
Wow.
With a kitchen.
Nice.
Because they knew that they needed to extend that right environment out to them, that the professionalism in here should extend out to there. The second thing about this team is that this team was super hyper informed. I got tons of stories about them, but the most important was then when COVID hit, these people here came into this room and started working on what they were going to do to mitigate the impacts of COVID on, you know, how something that was this collaborative was going to happen in a distributed form. And how they were going to communicate to each other and with the clients and so forth and make sure that things still happen appropriately and safely and on time, because they were building a public hospital that was desperately needed. This was not, COVID couldn't slow this project down.
So what, go ahead.
Oh, so they became the standard bearer for the rest of Turner, like worldwide, on what to do for COVID, because they knew where all their stuff was. There was no confusion about how to do ops. And that is beautiful to me.
So there's one more thing I want to add to it. So when you started talking about it, I was thinking like, you know, that would be a pretty cool job to be the person for the team who set up the Obeya and kept it all up to date. And like, that would be like therapy for somebody like me. But it would just be me doing, it would be my room that I would set up for everyone, optimize for everyone. And then you're like, and they all came together. I'm like, what do you mean they all, now that my job just went away. if we decide together, then it's a shared understanding. We're doing that collaboratively. Again, that goes back to your point from earlier.
So this pink shirted guy in back here, his name is Chris Christensen, and he's in charge of the whole project. He's basically the CEO of this project, a $1 billion plus project. And there was one day where I went to work with one of their teams to solve some problem. And I got there and they were in the middle of a crisis. And there was somebody who needed something from them, and it was a big emergency, and everybody was running around trying to get this thing, and they couldn't find certain pieces of information. And I was like, you know, Chris, Chris is like sitting at the front of the room. Let's see if I can find the room while I'm talking here. But Chris was sitting at the front of the room, and he was just watching them. Yeah, it's this room here. He was, oh, come on, you bring your friend. Chris was like sitting, this is Paul. He was sitting up where Paul is now.
Okay.
in a chair, and he was just watching everybody run around and do stuff. And I was like, it really seems like this is a bad time. So I'm going to head back to the office and I'll come by tomorrow. He's like, no, sit down. So I sat down and he just sat there and made me watch them for like 2 hours. And they ended up finding all of the information they needed. And then as soon as that information was found, they all went back into the Obeya, and they're basically like, okay, how can we make sure that that never happens again? And then we designed a system that would get that particular information to them.
Right.
I left, I came back 2 weeks later, and they built that system, but they built it in a way that it was on tablets.
Okay.
So that now whenever that information was available, it was already on the floor, regardless of which floor you were on in the building.
Okay.
And then that ended up being sent out to every other project elsewhere. But what Paul was showing me, or what Chris was showing me that day, is that they were so used to having the information that they needed that A, they could find whatever was left, and B,
Yeah.
as soon as it was done, they got this.
Okay.
So you talked about working yourself out of a job. That was the day I'd worked myself out of a job.
Well, that's awesome though.
Because those guys had they were like, we got it. We totally got it. It was such a beautiful day, and he was so damn sneaky about how he did it. He never said what he was doing. He's just like, I'm gonna make Jim sit and watch.
Yeah.
So that's that Obeya. And the way that we're working now is we're using this Obeya.
Okay.
So
Is Miro?
this is in iObeya. This is in a French tool called iObeya.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Miro, we use Miro for most of COVID, and it works okay. But Miro because it's so free form and has no boundaries,
Right.
it's very easy for it to devolve into chaos.
Okay.
Very quickly. So here we have this whole thing in their parlance is a room. So this is our Obeya room.
Right.
And we have, or I guess a hexagon. So these are our 6 walls. So this is our wall for daily operations, our wall for creation and product, our wall for sales, our wall for PR.
Okay.
And each of these have different visualizations in them that allow us to get our work done. And we can just zoom in on things. Like this is our work with our marketing client, or our marketing team. And so as you can see right now, we are behind.
Okay.
They're like, but it's in here with our work and with the stuff for our huddles and everything else.
So it's all in one place, one system of record, one place where we can all go look at it together.
That's
and
right.
See the same thing. Okay.
That's right. And so with one of our clients, what we're trying to design now is that on this first thing is going to be the items that are of corporate significance. Like, so this is strategy, major initiatives, sales, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And this is going to be team A and team B and team C and team D, so that everyone gets to see what everyone is working on.
Okay.
And we can see in a better way where cross team work is.
Okay.
So we can end the tyranny of dependencies and actually get work done. And so this is a very elegant tool, and it's French, and it does one cool thing, which is that they will install it behind your firewall. So if you have security issues with people,
you're totally
or
safe.
with SaaS products, it's a no-brainer.
Oh, that's cool.
But what I like about it is it's really clean.
Okay.
It's really, really clean. And so even the Obeya that I showed you at Coney Island Hospital,
right,
it had a lot of stuff on the walls, but I could point at certain things and say, this information lives here.
Yeah.
So there was order to it.
Okay. With all the stuff that we've just talked about, I know that it's all related to what you're covering in the book, but how do you tie that together with the purpose of the book and what you're trying to accomplish with it?
Right. So as I said, in Agile, we talk a lot about teams, and we have some prescriptive methods to work with teams. In Lean, we have talked about problem solving and value, and we have some prescriptive measures there. What I want to do is help people build their own systems, using the tool sets that are out there, but being aware that they're individuals in these teams and they're creating value. So the group as a whole needs to identify like who and what and why they are, and then instantiate that in their business process. So it's not enough to just do 2-week iterations or have a Kanban or something like that. It's that you have to understand the nature of your work and your role in making it better.
Okay.
And if you don't, then you're making it worse.
Wow.
Right.
All right. You're one or the other.
Yeah. This is the throwdown, right?
Okay.
So, and that's where quality comes from. So we always treated quality kind of like culture, like it was just something that floated out there and says, you know, quality would be great.
Go get the quality.
So quality and culture come from us removing the operational impediments to having a good culture and good quality.
Okay.
And a good culture always wants better quality because professionals don't want to do crappy things.
Yeah.
And quality can't exist in a fetid environment. You know, Conway already told us that. That's Conway's law straight up. So in the book, we talk about collaboration. Pretty much, it's kind of like this call. We talked about what collaboration is, what the impediments are to collaboration and why.
Right.
So we didn't talk about like bad actors and griefers and things like this in the call, but we kind of did. And then we talk about, okay, so here's how you figure out what a culture is. Here's how you figure out the work that you need to do. Here's how you figure out your relationship with quality.
Okay.
And then here's how you build your own system.
Okay.
And, you know, we can pull things from SAFe and RUP and Ronald McDonald and, you know, everything else that we can find in the world.
Yeah.
But are we as professionals satisfied with our work and the environment in which we work? And that is what the book is about. And it's been a tough one to write because, as you might guess, just from this call, there's just a lot to talk about there. It's deep and it's frustrating because a lot of us are so overwhelmed by life, the universe, and everything that we're like, can't you just tell me what to do?
Well,
and
well, so we're going to do another interview to kind of follow up on this, and it's about some of the stuff in the book. And I specifically want to get into the lenses and the stuff that I learned in the Lavin program in that. But I do want to just warn the people, if you check in for the second one, we're going to talk about some stuff that for me, it's like one of those things you can't unsee. Now that I've been taught to think about respect, and I think about respect in a different way, it just pisses me off all the time because I can't stop thinking about it. So it's a rock that once you turn over, you can't unturn over, I guess is the way to say it with this stuff. I mean, does that resonate? Do you agree with that?
We go forever. It's a frozen pole that once you lick, it can't be unlicked.
Yeah, there you go. So Jim, thank you very much. And if you've been listening to this, we're going to do another one. I'll link them both together as soon as we get it posted. But I really appreciate you making time for this. And I'm psyched to read the book when it's as soon as it's ready
to have it out. Trust me, this is a very, very long birth.
All right, well, we'll just leave it there then. Thank you very much. Oh, what if people want to get in touch with you? What's the best way to do that?
Oh, the best way to get in touch with me is either to send me an email to jim@moduscooperandi.com, which is always a handful to spell, or just to go to any of our websites, Modus Cooperandi or Personal Kanban or Modus Institute. And in the lower right-hand corner, there's a chat. So chat, and that will either become an email or I will show up and you're like, oh my God, I'm chatting with Jim Benson.
All right, and I'll make sure to include all those links in the show notes for this. Thank you very much. And everybody who's watching, check back for the next one. Thanks.
If you learn to work the old way, but the new way is what you need, my job's to make that switch from old to new.